Hello guys, in this video I'm going to be going over 4 tips for Dungeon Masters or RPG Game Masters, but specifically catering towards 5e Dungeon Masters. I've only been game mastering for a couple of years now, but these are some tips and tricks I think will be really useful, especially if you're just starting out as a DM or GM. Number 1. You rule the rules. The rules in a tabletop RPG are guidelines, not laws that have to be followed to the letter. Especially if you're starting out, you may see these huge books full of rules for every conceivable situation, especially in something like D&D 5e, where there's countless supplements and compendiums and extra classes and craziness and monsters. But really, for an RPG, all you need is your basic mechanics. So for D&D, roll 20-sided die. And that's all you really need to know to get started. And you can decide, like, it's cold outside and the players are freezing, but you don't have to look that up in a book. You can just say, make a constitution roll or you take d6 damage. Don't be afraid to change the rules. You could say, I don't like the warlock class, and you can just say, do you guys, I think we shouldn't use the warlock class. Is that good with you? And they're like, yeah, whatever, I wasn't going to be a warlock anyways, and you don't have to worry about warlocks. Or just change a monster's hit points or something to make him weaker or stronger. Also, you don't have to be loyal to one system. I played D&D 5e just straight out of the book for a while, and then I started looking at other systems and homebrew stuff, and looking into things. There's a system that I love by Runehammer, known as Index Card RPG. It's in its roots D&D, but it's simplified and it's very fun and easy to play. So that is a great one right there. Number 2. Combat is slow. It's true. Everyone likes to have combat because it's exciting and there's action, but there's so many finite mechanics and it moves so slowly. Like in D&D, in the rulebook, it says a turn is 6 seconds of action. So you get to do one thing and wait for the other person to do their thing and the other person, and it can drag on, especially in 5e when there's so many hit points on the monsters and the characters when you get to higher levels. It'll drag on and on. So yes, combat is fun, but is it worth slowing down the game to have constant combat? A lot of 5e games, it's like a battle, and a battle, and a battle, and you're like, look, oh no, there's a battle, right? So if you have less combat, it'll actually make the combats more exciting, especially if those fewer combats are fast and deadly. Remember, you want to have high monster damage, low monster health. It'll make the combats way more exciting, faster, and easier to run. Especially in this ridiculous pandemic. We can't meet together to play D&D, so a lot of people are playing on Zoom or other similar platforms, and in that setting, combat can be even slower because there's lag and sometimes you don't hear what someone says the first time, and it can just, everyone gets bored and they're like rolling around on the floor moaning from boredom. It's happened to me. I'm not gonna lie, I was DMing and it wasn't great. So just have a little less combat and make them faster. It's hard to get a balance, but it's very much worth the figuring out. Number 3, prepare to improvise. Lots of new dungeon masters think they have to plan out this story and plan out what everything's gonna happen. Like, they're like, okay, so this person walks up and says this, and they say you have to go here and here and here, and they write all those things out. But what I like to do is to prepare to improvise. Just write down what you need to figure out what's gonna happen. So, some key things I like to write down. How does it start? Where are the players when they start? What's their objective? Things to encounter. A room, a trap, a monster. Location. You want a few locations? Maybe it's a dungeon that you just write a couple notes about each room, or maybe it's this ruined castle that you just give a few descriptions, or this tavern, whatever it is. NPCs. So, this is one of the most important things to prepare, and I personally don't prepare my NPCs well enough. Make sure you outline a few solid NPCs. Not every character in a D&D game has to be an NPC, but sometimes you need a more fleshed out character. Another thing that I like to use, I haven't used it for a while, but I used to use this all the time, is a method called Secrets and Clues from Sly Flourish, which is the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I'll put a link down to this article down below, but the Secrets and Clues are, for one session, you outline 10 things that could be discovered by the players, like little sentences of information. And you don't decide how these things get figured out. You just put them in your notes, and then if you think that they find something out, you give them one of these sentences. You're like, the dwarves are working with an ancient cult that worships frog demons, for example. You know, like typical D&D stuff, right? Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and number 4. This one's kind of controversial, but play fair. I do not play with the DM screen. I used to play with the DM screen all the time, but I don't play with the screen. Roll your dice out in the open, especially during combat. You could roll your dice behind a screen in like a social interaction situation. This is up to personal preference, but really, you should roll all your dice in the open because it just makes it so much more exciting. Now you're rolling and oh no, it's a 1. He fails his saving throw. He's dead. Forever. And all the players are hanging on the edge of their seats watching you roll this single little piece of plastic across this little foam box. And everyone's attention is right on there. And attention is something you want to use as a dungeon master. Some dungeon masters roll behind a screen so they can like, oh, I don't want to kill them. But the dice tell the story. That's one of the main points of a role-playing game. The dice tell the story. You could use a DM screen to hide your notes. If you have players who are gonna be like, oh look, it's the map, let's look at it and see where we're going next. But why would they be like that? Why? Like, if they're being that annoying, dang, okay, I know I've been kind of harsh in this video, but these are just the things that some people don't get. I'm sorry. This is just what I think about dungeon mastering, or game mastering. At the end of the day, you can do whatever you want because it's a game and it's your game. And those books, you don't listen to them, you don't have to listen to me. But if you want to, great. And if you like what I said, great. But you don't have to listen to me because that's how the world works. And I'm just a guy in the internet, just talking into a camera in a room that's got no other people in it. So you don't have to listen to me if you don't want to, if you don't like what I'm saying. But if you say, hey, you're right, my combats are really slow, maybe those are good ideas, then there you go. Hope that helped. Bye.